Thanks, Pascal. I think one of the most regressive developments, I suppose, of economics from the late 70s, early 1980s, the Thatcher-Reagan economy, of course, was the whole process of securitisation, of the selling, of the bundling and selling of loans. And I suppose the most despicable of all aspects of that development was the selling of mortgages, the bundling and selling of mortgages of home loans. Obviously it's something that has profoundly and deeply impacted on hundreds of thousands of Irish citizens, especially in the years in which we've had this government from 2011. So I'm delighted to have a very brief opportunity to strongly support Deputy Pearse Doherty's and Sinn Féin's No Consent, No Sale bill. And last Wednesday, of course, I attended Deputy Doherty's informative briefing on the bill and heard outstanding contributions on the whole mortgage and securitisation crisis from speakers David Hall of the Irish Mortgage Holders Association and, of course, from Carly Bailey, whose family lost their home in this despicable process. We did, of course, we passed the Consumer Protection Regulation of Credit Servicing Amendment Act in 2018, and I think it's become operational over the past week or so, I spoke strongly in support of that bill, and I welcome that small step towards regulating vulture funds. But I think Sinn Féin's bill before us will profoundly strengthen this regulation by requiring the consent of the mortgage holder before the mortgage can be sold. So it's a huge and I think a welcome addition to hopefully we'll begin a process of finally beginning to regulate vulture funds. And it's a pity that the coalition partners, Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil together, are not supporting this welcome bill. And of course, the point that Deputy Doherty has strongly made on a number of occasions, and my colleague Deputy Pringle has just made, is that what we're doing here simply is putting on a statutory basis the central bank's own mortgage rules and making it a statutory requirement. And it's very disappointing, therefore, to read today that the central bank, is warning the Department of Finance not to support this bill, saying it will somehow it'll reduce banks' ability to sell non-performing loans. And of course, one of the scandals is that so many performing loans have been sold to vulture funds, and a whole host of other spurious reasons, of course, is given by in the central bank's opinion as to why you shouldn't do this, Minister. But you know yourself from your experience in Dublin Central, as I know from DBN, from Dublin Bay North, that this bill is the right way to go and we should do it. But it is sad, I think, that Fine Gael has had a particular affection over the years for vulture funds. I was in this chamber when your predecessor, Deputy Michael Noonan, extolled the virtues of vulture funds, and he talked about vultures in the ecosystem. They fulfil a useful function. He obviously meant like they pick the carcass clean. But in this case, we're talking about the intense suffering of families, who have lost their homes, who have suffered grave stress, the kind of constituents we met week in and week out. And we had the appalling situation then a few weeks ago when the Taoiseach himself said that vulture funds are more effective than banks. But the reality is that Fine Gael, over the past 8 years, you've done everything conceivably possible to protect the kind of asset-earning profit motives of the pillar banks, indeed of the whole range of banks, and the flotilla of vultures that followed them in their wake. So I support Sinn Féin and Deputy Doherty's bill.
We move now to the ruling country.